Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you are having a good day wherever you happen to be scattered. Today we are entering into John chapter 7, and Jesus is going to make a return trip to Jerusalem. Now, the last time Jesus was in Jerusalem was John chapter 5, and you'll recall that he healed the man who had been lame for 38 years and told the man to carry his mat, and it happened to be the Sabbath day. The Jewish authorities confronted Jesus about telling someone to break the Sabbath, and Jesus responded that his father was at work and so he too could be at work. Well, immediately the Jewish authorities recognized that Jesus was claiming some form of equality with God, calling God his own personal father. Jesus used this as a teaching moment to explain his relationship with God the Father, that he was the Son that was obedient to the Father, did nothing on his own, did everything that the Father showed him to do. And he spoke about how the Father gave him authority to give life. Well, this infuriated the Jewish leadership, and at that point they began looking for ways to kill him, to be rid of Jesus. And Jesus got out of Jerusalem and he returned to Galilee. Well, it is now the Feast of Tabernacles, and Jesus is going to go back to Jerusalem to participate in this feast. Now, this Feast of Tabernacles was the celebration of the harvest, kind of the end of the harvest, and it also commemorated Israel's time in the wilderness. And it was one of the annual feasts that Jews from all over would pilgrimage to Jerusalem to celebrate, to remember what God had done for them, to celebrate the annual harvest, and especially how God had brought them into the land, saw them through the wilderness. Initially, Jesus says he's not going to go back to Jerusalem. He knows that conflict is awaiting him, and he says it's not his hour, it's not his time yet. His brothers are kind of mocking him, telling him that he should go if he wants to be known and wants to do these signs in front of everybody. But Jesus isn't going. The brothers leave without him. But at some point in there, the Father must have told him to go, because Jesus went to Jerusalem. He went to the feast. Everyone was looking for him. They remembered his last time in Jerusalem. They wondered if he was coming. The big question, where is that man? And Jesus showed up and began to teach, and teaching at the temple. And the crowds were wondering about, okay, who is he? And there was widespread opinion. Is he a good man? Is he a fake? Is he an imposter? Is he really the Messiah? Is he from God? All these questions about who Jesus is, just kind of swirling around Jerusalem, swirling around the temple. Who is he? And where is he from? The Jewish leadership was confronted with the same question. And Jesus began to teach more about his relationship with the Father and about the work that the Father has given him to do. And they are infuriated. It is a context of conflict. And it intensifies, but they're not willing to do anything yet. Now, there's two things I want us to think about today. First of all, the question, who is Jesus? Well, that was the question that was swirling around Jerusalem and the temple. It's also a question that we have to answer. That question comes right off the pages into our lives. Who do we regard Jesus to be? Who is he, and where is he from? And sometimes we settle for the answer, well, he was a good man. Well, that may be true, but that's not the complete truth. We really have to get at it. Who is he? Where was he from? And I think we know the right answer, that Jesus is the Christ, that Jesus is the Son of God, that he came from the Father. We know that answer. But just like the Jewish leadership, even when they began to conclude that, okay, that's the right answer, yet there's great conflict because they don't like that answer. Because if that answer is true, if Jesus really is the Son from God the Father, then that means surrender. And it creates a conflict of authority, a conflict of who's in charge of life. And the Jewish leadership did not want to recognize the authority of Jesus. And I think that maybe, again, that's where we're at, that we can get the right answer in terms of who Jesus is, but in terms of living by that answer, in terms of the conflict that that answer creates and actually surrendering to Jesus, I think that's where we stumble, because we like to have authority over our own lives and we don't want to really yield that. And yet, if Jesus is who he is, and if he really is from the Father, which we confess that he is, then that means surrender on our part. So, wherever you are scattered today, my prayer is that not only do you recognize who Jesus is, but that you resolve the conflict and that you live surrendered to Jesus. That's my prayer for me. That's my prayer for you. God bless. Have a great day. In fact, have a surrendered day.